All right, so this time what we're going to do is create an application using Eclipse, which you already should have set up now, and the commenting imported, and the code style imported. So now what we're going to do is find the area of a triangle. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is create a new project, Java project. Okay, here I'm going to give it a name. Triangle. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be find area of triangle, a triangle. Okay, and I'm just going to select finish. Here I'm going to not create a module. We won't be using those. So just create yours. If you create it, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Not create. Okay, I'm going to open up that project. I'm going to right click on source, and I'm going to select a new class because, as we said before, everything in Java has to be in a class. Now later on we'll have the interface and enumerations as well, and we'll also see how to use packages. But for now, everything we do will be in a class. Click that. All right, and then I need to get rid of this toolbar up here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's right in my way. There we go, up a little higher. So, there, now it's out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to give this a name, area of a triangle, Triangle. Now, make sure public selected. Notice something up here that I haven't done yet, and that is a package. It says default, and what that means is what a package does is it puts your code into a directory structure that's like the package that you name it. So if that doesn't make any sense, let me do this. So I'm going to create a package called edu.northeast.dlblair. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that. So what this does, those dots will turn into actual directories when you make this. All right, so I'll show you this here shortly. Make sure and select public and the generate comments. Click finished. And here we see the comments that the style that we have imported. I went into there. If you don't know how to do this, go look at previous video on importing comments and then changing those. So I did not have to do a thing. If the file name is imported, the project name is imported. These do not need to be the same, as you can see here. All right, and then of course the date as well as the current date right here, creation date, and then the course name. So that's all done for you. I can get that out of the way to preserve some real estate here. Here I'll have to come in and change the purpose. Find the area of any triangle. Okay, so that's what this class does. It's pretty simple. And the rest of that is already done. So once that has, I've done that, I can collapse that and get it out of the way. This method here will always use the main, at least here at the first of the semester. And so I'm going to put here method description, the Java main, and I always put two parentheses to indicate a function or a method. The Java main method is the entry point for all Java execution. All right. Date, arguments. There's one called args, and there's not a return type, void. So I'm done with that. Now I can close that. So save it. I'm going to come in here, delete that, and now I'm ready to start coding. So the first thing I have to do, once I have my skeleton or my template, whatever you want to call it, made, then I have to come up with an input process output algorithm. How am I going to solve this problem? So the easiest thing to do, I think, is do it on paper first. Jot down your plan, your game plan, your algorithm. And so what I'm going to do is share a whiteboard. I'll come in here and pick a tool here. Let's see, I'll pick this one. So I'm going to draw out a triangle. All right, let's see, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll try to get close. So there we go. I'm going to change the color here, and I'm going to draw a line down to here. All right, come back up, go to text, and then label this the height, label the base as B, and then the area is equal to height times base, okay, all divided by 2. So that, oops, I left out my division, there we go, divided by 2. That hopefully will make sense in the fact that, well, what's a rectangle? Length times width. Well, this is basically length times width divided by 2. In other words, half of a rectangle. And if you look at this and think about the other half of the rectangle, would look something like, let's see, something like this, right? Then I'm just finding half of the area of that rectangle. All right, so let's go back. So I know my formula. I'm going to go back to my screen now. So here's my height times base divided by 2. Okay, so this is just going to be my formula. Is the height. So I always want to keep this into my code. This is pseudocode I'm writing now. So that's my overarching goal right there. So I'm going to start here with a comment that says create local variables. All right. And then give another space or two. Get height and base from user input. Okay, then what? Well, that's the input. Then the process will be calculate area using formula from above, and then output results. So I have an input, process, and output there, and now I just need to fill around that with actual code. So I'm going to create my variables. Well, what variables do I need? Well, sometimes you don't know just yet. Until you get a little bit more experience, it's hard to sort of guess at first. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to go back up as I need variables and define them. So, by the way, here's your package listed here. That's something very special to Java. If I come over to my directory structure here, and I go to, let's see, go to here and type in Eclipse. Eclipse. Then this Mac, I can go to, if I can find it here, and Windows makes this a little easier. Documents, Eclipse. So here it is. CISP 1010 workspace. I'm going to go into that workspace. And here is the find area. So that workspace is where all my projects are kept. Find area of triangle. If I go into here, there's my source. Well, here we see the .edu at the first. So if you look right here, edu dot rather, Northeast State dot DL Blair dot, and then there's my code. Okay, get that out of the way. So come back to here, get the height from a user. Well, in Java, I know that's going to take a scanner object, and you just have to know that. So here, I'm going to call my scanner object input equals, and then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get a height from the user. So height equals my scanner object input dot, well, it's going to be next integer. We'll just use integers, int, open, close, semicolon. Well, that whole line of code breaks because I haven't defined my variable height yet, and I have not defined my scanner object. So let's do that. SCANNER, scanner, input equals new scanner system dot in. So I have to direct it on where to get the input from. In this case, it's from the command line. I have a red squiggly, which means I've got a problem. I mouse over. I have a pop-up window that helps me resolve the problem. Okay, so here you want to go to the import scanner java.util, not the first one, but the second one, and complete that for you. Otherwise, you could just simply do that yourself. You could type in import Java util scanner. Okay. All right, so that's got that. Now I have to define up here in my variables also my height. That's an integer value, I said. HEIGHT is going to just initialize that to 0. And so then I realize I'm also going to need my base is equal to 0. And I probably need the results. So that's going to be a double value because it's a floating point value, DOUBLE. I could also use a float. And next video we'll talk about data types and the width of the data types. But for now, I'm going to take that back out, DOUBLE, and then area. Now, if you want to make it a little bit better, you could say area of triangle, and that's going to be 0D. I'll just use equals 0D. 0D. I'm going to use that double initializer is what that D is called. I could have also just have said 0.0, same thing. All right, so I'm going to put the D back in there with the initializer, guarantees a double in that area of triangle variable. Also note all of these are camel case. So I'm down to, I've received my input here from the user, okay, and it is in height. What I have not done, however, and you'll realize this the first time you test it, so at this point, you should probably stop Don't code this whole thing. Do a piece at a time and test it. So I'm going to test to make sure I'm getting input. Well, to test that, I'm going to put down here at the very bottom a piece of test code that I will remove. System.out.println. Okay, open, and in there I'm just going to type in height, just to make sure, a sanity check sort of thing, to make sure I'm getting out or in what I think I'm getting in. So I'm going to also label this as test code, and I might make sure that I realize that by putting a couple of asterisks in there. Test code. We'll learn a little bit later on in this semester how to use a more appropriate test framework in order to test our objects in our source code. Okay, so now I can run it, and I'll save it, run it here. You'll see at the bottom the console window will pop up and nothing happens. Well, actually something is happening, and at this point you should realize that I'm not prompting the user first. I need to put my prompts in there, enter the height of a triangle. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in 55 just to make sure I'm getting out 55, and it works, and the application ended. Okay, so that worked. That means this worked up here. All right, so now I'm going to get my prompt, system.out.println, and in here I'm just simply going to say, please enter a value, integer, and integer value for the height of a triangle. Okay, I'm going to run this again because I want to show you what this looks like, and we'll have to change it slightly. So I'm going to save that. Let's run another test, make sure I'm getting what I think I'm getting. I run this, and when I click down here, I realize that the cursor was not out here. If I force the cursor up here and then type something, you'll see it actually types on the line below it. That's not what I want. That's not user-friendly, let's say, or not a very good user interface, at least. The way I keep that cursor down there in Java is just to use the print and not the print line, LM. So I can just remove the LM, save that, and then hit run again. And now when I click over here, it's at the end where I want it to be. So now my tests are going along just fine. I come down here, I've got the height. I've already proved that by outputting the input here. So now I can get the base. So system.out.println, a print, please enter an integer value for the base of a triangle. Base equal input dot next int. All right, now I can test that to make sure I'm getting both values by coming down here and concatenating these together. Base. All right, so I'm going to run this and then show you something else about this output. So enter 5, base is 10, I get 5 and 10. Now what would have happened if I just wanted to show these without the string in between the two? Let's see, run this. Triangle height 5, base 10. The answer is 15. So it actually created an addition, not a concatenation of those two. Now that should give you a hint as what's going on under the covers of this application. So that means if you think about it, if I put this concatenation with a string in here, then under the covers or behind the scenes, however you want to say it, it's actually making a conversion from this this integer value to a string and this integer value to a string, and then concatenating those two strings together with a space. So that's all happening implicitly behind the scenes. All right, so that's important to find out later, a little bit later in the semester. Anyway, now I want to run the calculation. So the area of a triangle is equal to, well, remember we said that was the height, or the height times the base divided by 2. So height times base divided by 2. Now, will that give me the correct answer? Triangle. Well, we'll just have to see. So let's do this. Let's take out the height and the base because I know I'm getting the correct information there. And here I'm going to put in area of triangle and see what happens when I run this. So on go. I know that the height, if it were 5, the base is 10, then the answer should be, just by working it through in your head, 10 times 5 is 50, divided by 2 is 25. And my answer is 25. Now, in this case, the operator precedence work for you just fine. But if this were a plus, what it would do instead is divide the base by 2 and then add the height after that. So you always use parentheses to define the actual algorithm a little better. So just like that right there. So here I want to do this first, then the result divided by 2. So let's run this again, save it, run again. And now I'm going to put in 51. Oops. I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. Let's keep going. Notice I get 127. Let me run this again and put a different value in here. I meant to put a 6 and a 10, which would be 60 divided by 2 would be 30. So what happens if I put and then you should have these charted out. So a 7 divided by 10, 35, and 8 divided by 10. And so I'm getting these nice round numbers, right? Well, let's try a different scenario here. What if I put in 3 and 7? So 3 times 7 is 21, divided by 2, well, then we have 10. And it should not have been 10, right? It should have been 10.5. So what happened in my division? If I look back up here at my formula, or expression if you want to call it that, then the way Java works is if you do not have a floating point value in either the numerator or the denominator of a division, then the results will be an integer value and not a floating point value, even though I have a floating point value variable here. So the easiest way to do that is just to create a floating point value there. That will result in a floating point result that goes into the area of a triangle. So let's go ahead and run this again with the 3 and the 5. So 3, 5, 7, 3 and 7, and now I get a 10.5. So that's exactly what I expect. Okay, now I just have to formalize my output. And so I'm going to comment out my test code. Come in here and systen.out, and we'll get much more formal in our outputs and input statements here in the next few videos. But for now, the area of the triangle is the area of triangle. And once again, there's an implicit conversion from the double to the string right there upon the concatenation. All right.